What is up, you spooky bitches? We are back and we have another episode of the Hello Sidney podcast here, a podcast for horror lovers where we discuss any and all things horror. And it's me, your girl, Sidney, coming at you live. Not actually live because you guys aren't hearing this right now, but coming at you from the new podcast studio. This is a video episode. If you guys are not watching the video on YouTube or Spotify, please go to my Instagram. Like, you don't even have to follow me. I don't care, but I need you to see what this setup looks like. I am so proud of it. This neon sign looks even more beautiful than I could have imagined. And this isn't even getting it all on camera because there's so much more stuff up there, but I don't want to back it up too much. But I'm obsessed. This is officially the best room in my house. I'm going to do like a video tour eventually too. I also have this camera inverted so that the oh shit, see, that's messing me up because so that the sign is showing. So that's a little weird for me, but who cares? Look at this. Look at this. This sign is unreal. I got it from Yellow Pop, by the way, not sponsored, but they did such a great job. If you're looking for a neon sign, go to these people. It's crazy because there were some sites that had like the exact same sign for legitimately like triple the price. And these people, like, this was my favorite font anyway, and I'm obsessed. It's better than I ever could have imagined. I love it so much. I'm so happy. Thank you all for being patient. I hope the reveal was worth the wait. But here we are, first video episode in the new pod studio. And that's great because today we are not only talking about a Halloween movie, or what I consider to be a Halloween movie, but it's also a 2000s core movie. And it's fucking iconic if you ask me. And like the plot twist at the end of this one had me absolutely fucking gagged the first time I saw it. And it's one of those that every time I watch it, I'm still impressed by how it was pulled off. I really am. And I'm talking about this movie Cry Wolf, which is the movie we're talking about today. It came out in 2005. It has Jon Bon Jovi in it. And I don't know what else I need to say to convince you to watch it, and that is a good movie. Like, this bar on the floor, like Jon Bon Jovi in it, fucking sign me up, I'm in. So this movie again came out in 2005. The writer slash director, his name is Jeff Wadlow, and this was actually his feature film. This was his feature debut, and he actually won a competition at a film festival, and he won $1 million. Like, what the fuck? Like, who wins $1 million? But he won $1 million in this film festival, and that's how he got the money to fund this movie. So thus was born Cry Wolf. And this movie is about 1 hour and 31 minutes, so it's a relatively quick watch. It has a 5.8 on IMDb and a 21% on Rotten Tomatoes, which, like, personally, I think that's fucking blasphemy. I think it should be higher than that. Like, 21, there's a theme. Rotten Tomatoes critics are fucking haters, especially when it comes to 2000s core movies. It's like it has to be a requirement, which is hilarious because I applied to be a Rotten Tomatoes critic and they just fucking ghosted me. They didn't even deny me, but they probably took one look at my page and was like, ugh, she likes 2000s horror movies. It's a no. Like, we can't fucking have her here because every Rotten Tomatoes critic is a fucking hater, I swear, when it comes to 2000s horror, because every 2000s horror movie you look up, they are all rated low like this. And I don't get it. Like, do you guys not enjoy fun? Do you not have nostalgia? Like, were you not teenagers watching these movies? Like, I don't get it. But regardless, I digress. I can go on a whole fucking rant about that. But 21%, ridiculous. But Cry Wolf opens up with this girl screaming. Like, just right off the bat, like right off the rip, you're like, oh, fuck, like something's going on. And this girl is clearly in distress and she's running through the dark woods, like this dark forest at night. And we can hear that somebody's following her. We can see that somebody is following her. And eventually she falls and we hear like a bone crack. So, of course, she like broke a fucking ankle or something. And she starts crawling and she hides behind a tree and she gets really quiet. And she can see this flashlight in the distance. Like, the person looking for her has a flashlight. So she's sitting there very quietly, and we cut to this person, the assailant, whoever you want to call them. We never see their face at this point. We just see that they're dressed all in dark, like they're dressed in black. They have black gloves on, and this person pulls out their cell phone and calls Becky. Her name's going to end up being Becky. They call Becky and Becky's phone starts ringing and gives her hiding spot away. So we see this person go over to her as Becky's trying to frantically turn off her cell phone to no avail. Like, your spot is already given up. And this person goes up to her and holds a gun up to her. And we cut to black as we hear a gunshot. So we understand that Becky just got shot and Becky most likely died. So we then get the opening credits. That's how this started. And we're getting this overhead view of like this forest, and you can tell that it's fall out because like the foliage, it looks beautiful. And we're also hearing this news report about this woman named Becky Roberts, and she's been missing for 24 hours now. So this is the girl that was in the woods. And we also see this guy on a train, and this is going to end up being our main character, Owen. But eventually we come upon the Westlake Preparatory Academy, and that's where Owen's going. So he arrives there with his bags, and he looks at this map, and the campus is just completely deserted. Like nobody is around. And you're like, does anybody even go to this fucking school? Like Owen is very confused. Like he literally is going into empty buildings and he's like, hello? Like, is anybody here? So eventually he gets to this one building and the door opens and finally a human, this girl comes out. It's this beautiful redhead girl. Her name is going to be Dodger, which I fucking love that. I've never met or heard of anybody named Dodger other than the character in this movie, and I think that's such a fucking iconic name. I love it. So this girl comes out and she sees him and she says hi, and he's like, where is everybody? And she says, oh, there's an assembly going on. And he asks what it's about, and she says, oh, some townie was screwing around with the wrong guy probably, and she's missing. So they're here to tell us all about like safety and whatnot. Like the police are here. So they introduce themselves, Owen and Dodger, and Owen explains to her that he came here from England. He has an English accent, and he tells her that he went to a bunch of different schools and he can't seem to stay in one school. And she asks him like, well, what'd you do at your last school? And he brings up how he was dating the dean's daughter. And before he can get any further into that story, they're distracted when a teacher comes out and gets mad at Dodger for missing the assembly. But Owen stands up for her and is like, oh, no, like, sorry, I asked her to show me to my dorm. So the teacher moves on, and then all of a sudden the assembly lets out and this crowd comes out, and in the crowd Dodger gets lost, and like when Owen turns, she's gone. But you can tell like he's immediately enamored with this girl. And we get this like really quick montage of school in the mid 2000s. Like we see everybody out on the quad, like playing football, hanging out. They have like these old phones because again it's 2005, so all their cell phones are like fucking, remember like chocolates? Like they look like fucking chocolates. Like nobody even has a fucking pink razor in this movie. Like that's how early on this was. So Owen's sitting on the quad and he calls his dad, and we cut to his dad and we see his secretary call him and say, hey, your son's on the line. And he's like, oh, send him to voicemail. Like imagine that. He's like, nah, send him to voicemail. Like I'm good. So Owen leaves him a voicemail and he kind of exaggerates things. He's like, oh, I got a job as a teaching assistant, but we see Owen actually got a job as like a janitor, like he's cleaning up the cafeteria, and he's like, I'm taking all these great classes, and like he's taking journalism. And we see that he's met his roommate, whose name is Tom, who is played by Jared Padalecki, who was literally everywhere during this time. Like he was popping up in every fucking movie in like the early late 2000s. So that night, oh God, we're falling. Something's falling. It's my Jaws painting. It's being held up, but like one of the command strips gave out and it's crooked. We'll fix it later. Anyway, so that night, Owen is asleep when he's waken up by his roommate, Tom. And Tom's like, we're sneaking out. Come with. And Owen turns over like he wants nothing to do with it. And he's like, no, I'm good. And Tom is like, Dodger asked me to bring you. And of course, that immediately gets Owen involved, and the two of them sneak out. And Owen asks where we're going, and he says we're going to the chapel. It's tradition to go there to play a game. So eventually they get there and they meet the rest of the crew, the rest of this group of friends, which consists of that girl Dodger, and it also consists of this guy Randall, who is supposed to be kind of like the goth / punk, like he has like piercings all over his face. And there's this guy Graham, who's a redhead. I'm just trying to come up with like a identifying factor, and that's the most obvious one about him. And there's this couple, Mercedes and Lewis, and there's this girl Regina as well. I love how I didn't come up with the identifying factor for anybody else except for the redhead. Like I just felt like it was necessary. So everybody starts putting money in, and Owen is like, what, can somebody like explain this game to me? Like, what are we doing? And Dodger explains to him it's a lying game, and the point is to manipulate your friends. So Dodger goes on to explain how she is like the games leader here, and she's going to pick one person to be a liar, and that person is the wolf, and everybody else is a sheep, and they have to find the wolf and convince the rest of the group to vote that person out. And if the wolf survives, they get the money, but if the rest of the group figures out who the wolf is, then they get the money. So like that's how this whole thing works. Like, that's why we're putting money into this. And we see everybody close their eyes, and Dodger marks Owen as the wolf. So she like lifts up his shirt and like draws like an X on his chest with lipstick. So the game begins, and the whole point is to just like start accusing each other. So that's what they start doing. They all start accusing each other, and they're playing the game. And at first it's all fun and games. They're all laughing, but then they get between, they think it's either Randall or Tom, and the vote is split, and it's Owen's vote that's going to make the final vote to decide which one of them is voted out and has to leave. And they both kind of try to convince Owen to vote for the other one, but ultimately Owen ends up voting for Randall. Like, he's like, I think you're the wolf, which Owen obviously knows that he's the wolf, but he's just wants to get Randall out. So he's like, oh no, Randall, I think you're the wolf. So Randall gets up and he's like pissed about it, and he like lifts up his shirt to show that he doesn't have the mark, and he looks at Owen and he's like, watch your back. Like, brother, we're literally just playing a fucking game, relax. And the others kind of like even think he's being ridiculous, and they make fun of Randall as he leaves, because when you're voted out, you have to like fully leave. Like, you can't even hang out with your friends anymore. Like, you're out. So round 2 starts, and the group now suspects Owen, because they're like, oh, well, you voted Randall out and it wasn't him, so like maybe it's you. But then he starts to defend himself, and he does a pretty damn good job. And he's like, that could be true, except for one thing. When somebody lies, they usually have a tell. And Graham, you have this tell where every time you speak, you take a swig of your beer. And he's like, whatever. We're like, what does that mean? And Owen's like, your bottle's empty. And he calls him out on it, and Graham's like, oh, fuck. And everybody notices this too and is like, oh yeah, Graham's definitely the one fucking lying. Like, that's so right. And Owen is like, you guys can't tell each other's tells because you're all too close. Like, it just, what you don't know. So Owen convinces everybody that it's Graham, and he gets voted out. And he also is fucking pissed, and he gets up and he leaves Dodger, and he's like, he says to Dodger, have fun with your new recruit, and like walks out with the fucking attitude. And like, apparently this whole group is fucking sore losers. Like, that's literally the object of the game that you've seemingly played 100 times. Like, why is everybody so fucking pressed about this? And Tom cracks me up when he's leaving, because he's like, Tom, as Graham is walking away, says he's just pissed because he's fat. Like, it's just so random. Like, Graham like isn't fat. Like, it's just a fucking way to just throw a final twist the wound as he's walking out all pissed. It's hilarious. But then we get a montage of the game continuing, more people being voted out, until it eventually gets down to Lewis and Mercedes, who's the couple, and Owen and Dodger. And Mercedes is the next one to be voted out, and she leaves, and she's pissed too. And she decides that she's going to flash everybody to show that she doesn't have the mark on her. And this causes Lewis to chase after her. He's like, yeah, I'd rather go like get it on with my girlfriend than stay here with you two. So that means Owen wins, because he's the wolf and he's the last one standing. So he collects his money, and he starts talking about how like Dodger's like, wow, I can't believe you did that on your first try. And Owen's like, yeah, it's kind of easy. Like, bored rich kids are very easy to read. And when he says that, Dodger gets pissed, and she's like, those bored rich kids are my friends. And she ends up walking out. But we cut back to the woods where we were in the beginning, and we see police in the woods because there has been a body discovered. And of course, it's that girl, Becky, from the beginning. So she was indeed shot and killed. And the next day, Owen wakes up, and there's a note from Tom on his alarm clock. Like, Tom fucking turned his alarm clock off so he wouldn't wake up. So now he's late to class, so he makes a run for it, and he ends up getting to his journalism class, and the teacher is none other than John Bon Jovi, who in this movie is going to be Mr. Rich Walker. So he's the journalism professor, and he gets in class, and like, it's fine. He sits down. Randall is in the class. Dodger is in the class. And as Owen sits down at his computer, an IM sound goes off. So he gets a message. Remember like the little ding, like when you would get like an AIM, like instant message. And so that's what happened. So a little ding goes off, and Mr. Walker is like mad. He's like, can you show me even more that you're distracted and not paying attention? Like, what the fuck? So he mutes the alerts, and it ends up being this person called Bo Peep. And she says 10 p.m. Like, first she says, you look like death. And then she says 10 p.m. So like, they're meeting up at 10 p.m. And he looks at Dodger, who smiles at him. That's how he knows that it's her. So we then cut to the group at lunch, and they're talking about how like they found that girl's body in the woods, and apparently they found her in a different spot from where she was murdered because she had been dragged through the woods by a wolf, people are speculating. And they argue about how like it was probably a man, but then Mercedes is like, well, why couldn't it have been a woman? Like, of course it could have been. So it's kind of like the argument in Scream when Tatum is like, a woman could have done it, and Stu is like, it takes a man to do that. Like, that, it's one of those whole things. Like, they're arguing about whether this could have been a woman because Mercedes believes that it could be, but the others don't. So Tom changes the subject and tells all of them how his dad is letting them use their lake house for the weekend. Like every weekend, everybody goes off campus. Like nobody stays here. So this weekend, we're all going to the lake house, and he invites Owen to go with him. And Randall speaks up, and he's like, I'm actually not going because I'm going to another school to see his girlfriend, Jenny. He's like, I'm going to spend the weekend with Jenny. And they're all having a holiday weekend. So they're all going to be away at the lake house with the exception of Randall, who asks if he can borrow Tom's car, and Tom says sure. So Owen then brings up, he's like, so are we going to play the game again tonight? Apparently they play this game like every night. And Dodger is the one that's like, I'm not really sure I want to. And everybody kind of looks at her crazy. Like, what do you mean? Like, this was your idea. Like, this is your game. And she's like, well, I think Owen was right. Like, we know each other too well. So it's almost becoming not fun anymore. And they're like, so you want to stop playing the game completely? And she's like, no, I don't want to stop. I want to play with the whole school. And they all kind of look at her like she's crazy at first, but then she's like, they're the sheep and we're the wolves. And what's the best way to play the game? And Owen's the one that answers her and says, accuse your neighbor. And she says, exactly. Nobody knows who killed that girl. So let's make an accusation and let's convince everybody that the murderer is on campus and is just getting started. And they all kind of look at her for a second like she's crazy, and they're like, how? And Dodger tells them, like, she looks around, like they're all asking questions, looking at her like she's crazy. And she gets upset. She looks at them and she's like, you guys have no imagination. It's like you're playing checkers and I'm playing chess. And she gets up and she leaves the table. But Owen ends up chasing her out. And he's like, you know what? I'm into this. And he actually suggests, what if it's not just one murder? What if it's a serial killer? And this happens at campuses across the country. And this person has struck on college campuses before, and it's happening again. So they end up going to the library, and they go and they create a killer. Like, that's the whole point. So they're writing up this email about this killer, and they're like, he needs a creepy name. Let's call him the Wolf. Like, it's coming from the game, of course, because they played this lying game about the wolf. So they're like, let's call him the Wolf. And they make up what he looks like. And eventually they land on the fact that he has an orange, like, hunter ski mask on, and he has a camouflage jacket, and his weapon of choice is a hunting knife. And Owen's like, wait, didn't that first girl get shot? And Dodger is like, yeah, let's say that the first death is always like a warning shot. Like it's a townie that gets shot in the woods. And then the massacre begins on campus with the knife. And they agree. So they type up this email. And Dodger is like, it's perfect because this weekend is Halloween. So let's say it always starts on Halloween. So if you're sitting there and you're like, Sidney, how the fuck is this a Halloween movie? It's really not. But it does take place on Halloween, and there is going to be a Halloween party involved. So Dodger they end up meeting with the whole group again, and Dodger tells them all the plan, and they start to talk about like who's the next victim. And Mercedes is like, well, we should say that he hides in the back seat of a car. And they're like, oh no, that's too obvious. So they move on, and they're like, no, like they kind of throw it back at Mercedes. They're like, no, let's say the first victim is this girl with dark hair who gets killed in the bathroom while she's looking in the mirror. And they're obviously like talking about how this would be Mercedes. Like she's the perfect first victim. And as they start saying everybody's name and like, they don't say names, but they like kind of allude to like, okay, you're the next victim. We're getting flashes of these people's deaths. Like we're getting flashes of the wolf attacking these people. So like we get a quick flash of the wolf attacking Mercedes in a bathroom. And then they're like, okay, so like the misogynist next, which they're talking about Randall. And then the wannabe actor is next. They're talking about Lewis. And then the campus queen is after that. And that's talking about Dodger. And again, we're seeing shots of them all getting murdered as they like very brief shots as this is getting brought up. But the last victim is the good guy who fell for the bad girl. And that's Owen. And we see a shot of him being shot in the chest. Like he died of a broken heart is what they say. So Owen ends up finishing the email, and he types like it's like he's forwarding this email that he received, and he types in it like, oh my God, this happened at my last school. And he forwards it to the whole school. He sends it to everybody. And Owen looks at Tom and Dodger and Regina, who are all in the room with him, and they're like, do you think anybody's actually going to believe this? And sure enough, they fucking do, because the next thing that we get is a montage of everybody on campus talking about this email. And they're like, I forwarded it to my brother. He forwarded it to a bunch of other people. So now it's spreading, and they all are talking about it like they believe it. Like, oh yeah, that girl in the woods, and like he's going to strike during the Halloween party. Like everybody very clearly believes this, and this spreads everywhere. So some time goes by, and eventually we see Owen outside, and Mr. Walker stops him and brings him into his office. And Mr. Walker has like this new chess set that he had in his arm. So like they start playing chess for a little bit, and Walker tells Owen, somebody forwarded your email to me, and they also forwarded it to the victim's mother. And Owen's like, oh, fuck. Like, I didn't want that to happen. And the mother forwarded it to her attorney, who sent it to the headmaster of the school. And I also looked up your records, Owen, and it turns out your father pulled some heavy strings to get you in here, and your status here is probationary. So you cannot end up in the headmaster's office, like, by any means. And Owen continues to play chess, and apparently he wins. And he tells Mr. Walker, like, he admits that the thing is a joke, and he's like, it was just for fun. And Mr. Walker is like, yeah, but it had real life consequences. And Owen looks at him and was like, this is high school. Like, nothing is for real. We're gonna find very quickly that is a fucking lie, but also the truth. Cryptic, but we'll get there. We cut to Owen now in his dorm room, and he calls his dad, and his dad once again sends him to voicemail. Like, his dad does not give a fuck about, like, talking to his son, but Owen doesn't even leave a voicemail this time because he hears the sound of an IM coming from his computer. And when he goes over to see who it is, he sees a message from somebody called the Wolf. Like, somebody just called Wolf. And they say, be careful what you wish for. And he immediately thinks that this is a joke, and he, like, taunts the person. He's like, oh, I'm so scared. And the person just responds, you should be. So Owen kind of gets taken aback by that. And then he starts to type, like, give it up, Tom. So he thinks that it's Tom, but then suddenly Tom walks in, and Owen is like, oh, I got your message, and shows him. And Tom is like, that wasn't me. And as he says that, the person sends another message. So we know that it can't be Tom. And Tom now starts to think it's Dodger. He's like, it's obviously Dodger. Like, who else would it be? And the Wolf accuses Owen of spreading lies because he sent that email that was completely a lie. And Tom gets in now. He's like, okay, watch this, because I know this is Dodger. So he responds and he says, yes, it was me and Tom, Randall, Regina, Mercedes, Lewis, and a fat girl named Dodger, which, like, again, Dodger is absolutely not fat, but he's just trying to fucking piss her off because he thinks that it's Dodger. And the Wolf responds, I will pick your bones clean like that bleached blonde slut, which bleached blonde slut talking about Becky, the girl in the woods, because she was blonde. And they both kind of look at each other nervous, but Tom tells him, like, relax, like, it's just a joke, it's fine. But we cut to Dodger, who is in the pool, and she's doing laps, and suddenly she stops swimming and she says hello. Like, it seems like she heard something. So she looks around and she's like, hello? And nobody responds, so she keeps on going. But then something gets thrown into the pool, which causes her to stop, and she looks up and she looks all around and she asks who's there. And we cut to this balcony and we see that it's fucking Tom and Owen, because they think that she sent these messages, so they're trying to get her back. And they have, like, a bag of ice, and that's what they're throwing into the pool. So they take this, like, Tom takes this chunk of ice and he, like, throws it over his back without looking where it's going. And Owen looks over and looks at the pool, and he sees that Dodger looks like she's hurt. Like, she looks like she's been hit, and she starts sinking. So he panics and he runs to the pool and he jumps in. He's like, she's not moving. So he jumps in, he grabs her and he pulls her out of the pool, and he, like, goes to start to give her CPR, but then she comes back too. And she was faking. Like, she just starts laughing. She's like, I knew it was you guys. And the boys tell her about the IMs. They're like, we know that was you. And she's like, no, I was with Regina all afternoon off campus. Like, there's no way it could have been me. So they immediately believe her. And she insists that someone is just trying to scare them. She's like, it's probably somebody from the group. They're just trying to scare you. So Owen ends up going to confront Graham next, thinking that it was him. And Graham is, like, in a study group, and he denies it. And he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, I have been here the whole time. And, like, everybody in the study group confirms it. And Owen asks him what he was just talking about, because it sounds like he was talking about him. And Graham is like, I was saying that I filed a noise complaint. Your bedroom is directly above mine, and it sounds like you're having fucking WWF tryouts up there. So Owen gets confused by this, and he ends up running back to his room, and he sees a note on the door from his RA saying to come see me. And when he goes in the room, he finds Tom sitting there, and the room is completely trashed, but only Tom's stuff. Like, Owen's stuff is untouched. So Tom gets pissed, and he's like, did you really do this? Like, why, like, you must have done this. And Owen denies it. And he's like, well, why did they only touch my stuff and not yours? And they hear another IM come from the computer. So they look down, and it's another message from the Wolf. And the Wolf said, I ate your friend. And laying on the computer is this bloody piercing. And Tom immediately clocks it as, like, that's Randall's. Like, that's one of Randall's piercings. And it is blood all over it. And Owen, like, is kind of freaking out, but Tom is like, relax, like, this was Regina. I know it was Regina because she has, like, this propensity for fucking special effects, and she does this shit all the time and makes fake blood. It's just corn syrup. And he goes to like lick it, and he like kind of makes a face. He's like, oh, it tastes different today. Like, so is it not corn syrup is what you're saying, Tom? So Tom ends up calling Regina and accuses her of this. He's like, oh, good one. Like, I see what you did here. And she's like, no, like, I've been on a field trip off campus all afternoon. Like, that literally could not have been me. So now they're kind of freaked out. And Owen ends up going to Dodger because now he still thinks that it's her. And he's like, why are you doing this? And Dodger leads him away, like kind of to like a private area because this was in front of everybody. And for some reason, she decides to admit to Owen that she's actually a townie. She lives here in town, and her mother is like an English teacher, and she doesn't even want to tell him what her father does. And he's like, how could you afford this then? And she says that she's on scholarship, and she seems embarrassed, and she says that she's embarrassed to be a townie because there's like a negative connotation, like people think that townies are trash at the school, so she's embarrassed by that. But then Owen, like trying to comfort her, brings up his own past about how his dad sent him here so he didn't have to deal with him, which yes, we can tell by the way your father literally ignores all your phone calls and doesn't give a fuck about you. That's very obvious. But he also goes on to explain what happened at his last school. He's like, I told you that I was dating the dean's daughter, but what I didn't tell you is that I got arrested and charged with possession because she had drugs and we were going to get caught, and she panicked because she thought her dad was going to lose his job. So I ended up taking the fall. And Dodger kind of relaxes, and she's like, you're a really good guy. And she asks him why he played the game to begin with. And he looks at her, like, obviously to say, like, I just like you. Like, I just wanted to hang out with you. And she kind of like nods in understanding. And she brings up how like he saved her at the pool. Like, even though she was faking, like he still jumped in with no hesitation to save her. And the two of them like kind of have a moment, and they lean in to kiss, but suddenly they're startled when a book falls, and they start laughing. And then Owen sees somebody walk by the doorway, and sure enough, that person has on an orange ski mask and a camouflage jacket. And now they're in like this library area of the building, and there's motion lights, so the lights only go on when somebody walks by, and like if you're standing really still, the lights will turn off. So the two of them slowly walk towards where Owen just saw this figure, and like Dodger is laughing. She thinks this is a joke and somebody's playing a prank on them, and they don't see anybody, but then suddenly the lights turn on somewhere else from the opposite way, like from the way that they just came from. So they're like, how the fuck did that person get over there? So they end up staying really still so that the light that they're under will turn off, and like they're like face to face. Like you're like, oh my God, just kiss. Like, are they going to kiss or what? So they both stand there and the light goes off, but then somebody starts to walk down the hallway. And as they walk down the hallway, like lights are turning on. So they can tell that this person is coming for them. And there's like this tense music playing. And then suddenly this person turns the corner, and it's just the librarian. So the two of them kind of laugh it off, and they end up leaving. And Dodger, they're talking about like who it could have been, and Dodger is like, it's probably the most obvious answer. And Owen is like, what if it actually is the guy that murdered that girl? And he might be pissed because we sent out this email and like spread these lies. And Dodger denies it. She's like, I think it's probably Randall, and he probably didn't even go and see Jenny. Like, that was a cover up, and he's just here fucking with us. So Owen at this point asks Dodger to go get dinner with him. And like, she's kind of equally enamored with him. It seems she really likes him too. So she agrees. And Owen ends up realizing that he forgot his backpack. So he goes back into the library, or as he's about to go back into the library, Dodger is like, oh, I have something I have to go do anyway. And Owen leans in to kiss her, but she's like, oh, sorry. Like, she dodges him. Dodger. Pun not intended, actually. That was an accident. Anyway, she dodges him and is like, sorry, not a fan of PDA. And she walks away. And we see this groundskeeper in the background kind of like look up and watch her, and then like stare down Owen as if he like hates him for some reason. And Owen sees this and he's like, okay. So he just goes back into the library to look for his backpack, but it's not there. And he asks the librarian, and she's like, nope, like nobody turned it in. So Owen ends up sometime later calling the school that Jenny goes to, that girl. And he asks for her. He's like, can I talk to Jenny? And they connect him with Jenny, and he's like, hey, can I speak to Randall? And she's kind of confused. She's like, he's not here. Like, showed up. He stood me up and he didn't even call me. Like, fuck that guy. So Owen's like, okay, that's kind of weird. So he ends up finding Mercedes and he's like, do you know where to find Dodger? I want to give her something, because it turns out he took like a $20 bill and he wrote on it, good for dinner, because when he asked her to dinner, she was like, yeah, nothing over $20. So he's going to go give this to her as like a way to like kind of cash in to take her for dinner, whatever she wants. So Mercedes is like, oh, I think she's going over something with Mr. Walker in the faculty building. So Owen goes over to the faculty building and it's dark at this point, and he goes upstairs slowly and there's nobody else in this building, and he can see Mr. Walker and Dodger in his office behind the frosted glass. You can very clearly tell that it's the two of them. And at first it seems like they're talking like normal, but then suddenly Mr. Walker starts to approach Dodger and he gets really close, and sure enough, he starts kissing her. And Owen just looks at this and like you can tell he's super upset, and he walks out. And like, this is high school. I need to remind everybody of that, because like it's a preparatory academy and there's a campus and everything, so it can seem like a college. This is fucking high school. So this girl is probably like, I guess she could be 18, but like, you are a vile man, Mr. Walker. Like, you're fucking a student that is probably underage. That is most likely underage. You vile fucking menace to society. So Owen ends up getting back to his dorm, and you can tell that he's just super upset by this whole thing, obviously. And he sees Tom, who has his backpack, and he's like, oh, the librarian dropped it off, so somebody must have dropped it off to her. And he starts trying to talk to Owen, like just make conversation. And you can tell that Owen like obviously wants nothing to do with it. Like he's kind of sitting there in silence. And then Tom brings up the Halloween dance and he wants to be a murder victim. Like that's what he wants his costume to be, because Regina is really good with like the special effects, so she can make me look really good. And Owen is just like, I don't think I'm going to the Halloween. Like I have to work. I don't want to go. And he ends the conversation. Like you can tell he's very upset from what he just saw. Understandably, like you think this girl likes you and then you come in here and you see that she's fucking her teacher. Our teacher? Gross. So we cut to the next day in journalism class, and obviously Mr. Walker is the teacher there, and Owen just looks fucking pissed because obviously he now hates this guy, and everybody starts turning in their papers, and when Owen goes to pull something out of his backpack, a hunting knife falls out. Like a very vicious looking, aggressive ass hunting knife. And everybody like sees this and panics because it makes a whole scene. It falls on the floor and everybody panics, and Mr. Walker, like Owen picks it up for some reason, and Mr. Walker like goes over and like grabs it out of his hand. Like it looks like Owen looked more menacing picking it up than not. Like it looked like he was going to fucking use it. But Mr. Walker grabs it out of his hand, and then he starts walking Owen out to the headmaster's office. He's like, I have been trying to help you, and like I told you, you can't end up in this office, but I have no other choice. Like you brought a weapon to my class. And Owen is trying to explain like it wasn't mine. I think Randall is trying to make me think that the email that I sent out is coming true. Like somebody's trying to frame me. And Mr. Walker is still just like, nope, sorry, my hands are tied. Until Owen says, I know about you and Dodger. And he stops walking and he's like, he turns, and at first he tries to deny it. He's like, she's a student. And Owen is like, yeah, exactly. Like, you sick fuck. And he tells him, I saw you two in your office last night. And Mr. Walker is like, you don't have any proof. And Owen's like, I don't need proof. If I say that to this school and there is any like inkling that that information could get out, even if it's just speculation, like they'll fucking fire you immediately. And Mr. Walker knows that that's true. And he also knows that it is true. So like he's fucked. So Mr. Walker is holding the knife. Like they make it a point for us to see that he's holding the knife. Like we cut to his hand and see him like gripping it very tightly. And he just looks at Owen and he's like, you think you're smarter than you are. And he walks away. But he is kind of smart because that made you not fucking tell on him to the dean, because now he has fucking dirt on you. So we end up cutting to the cafeteria sometime later. We see Owen eating alone because he wants nothing to do with Dodger at this point. And eventually we get to Halloween and everybody on campus is dressed up, and Dodger stops Owen and she is dressed as Little Red Riding Hood appropriately. Everything is like wolf themed here, right? So she's dressed as Little Red Riding Hood and she's trying to be like all flirty with Owen because she doesn't know that he saw her at this point with Mr. Walker. And she's being all flirty, she's dressed up, and he gives her an attitude, which like understandable. He's obviously again pissed about this whole situation. So he gives her a fucking attitude and he says that he's not going to the dance because she's asking him if he's going. He's like, I'm not going to the dance, and I'm not going to Tom's Lake House, and I'm not playing this game anymore with your friends. Like I don't want to even hang out with your friends. Like I'm over it. Is he being a little dramatic? Maybe, but whatever. So Dodger apologizes about the knife because she thinks that Randall did that too. She's like, Randall sucks. Like, I was right though. Like, it definitely is Randall. So you owe me dinner. And he just looks at her and he says, I don't owe you anything. And he walks away, which like, I would throw up. If I was Dodger and like I was like trying to be flirty and like, oh, you owe me dinner, and a guy was like, I don't owe you anything, and walked away, I would probably vomit. Like, I feel like that would make me spiral. So Owen skips the Halloween party and he ends up going to work. And again, he like works as like the janitor. So he's cleaning up the cafeteria, he's putting chairs up to clean everything. And he looks out the window like he heard something at one point, but then when he doesn't see anything, he turns away. But when he turns away, we see the killer show up in the window. Like, again, when I say the killer, I'm referring to the guy in like the fucking orange ski mask and the camo jacket. We see him show up in the window, but Owen doesn't see him. So he goes on and he continues working. And we get a POV approaching where he's standing is like in the kitchen in the back. And he suddenly sees like a blind on one of the windows move. So he looks and he like slowly approaches this room where the blind is. It's like a back office or like a pantry or something. And he goes slowly. And there's like tense music playing, like you know somebody's in there, you just don't know who. And he opens the door and it's just like two girls making out. So it's actually nothing threatening, and they end up leaving. So Owen continues working, and at one point he's mopping, but he has his headphones in, which never a good fucking idea, especially when all this weird shit's going on. So we, the audience, see the killer walk in the door behind him and approach him really closely. And this person is holding a knife, like a very giant, aggressive hunting knife. And Owen doesn't notice this until he's directly behind him. And eventually Owen turns and sees him, and he's not immediately terrified because at this point he still thinks it's Randall, until the killer takes that knife and fucking swipes it at him. And Owen dodges it and he starts running, and the killer chases him but like slips in a bunch of water. But they end up going into the kitchen, he chases him into the kitchen, and Owen has a head start because he fell. So he opens the back door to make it look like he ran outside, but he actually hides in the kitchen. So the killer comes in and he goes outside and he's like looking around. And as he's doing this, Owen starts to approach him from the back to close that door. But the killer catches the door at the last second. The struggle ensues, but ultimately Owen is able to close it and lock it. And he instead runs out the front door. And now this Halloween party is happening, and he goes to the building where it's happening, and he looks through the door, and through the window, he sees the killer now in there approaching the window. So Owen now runs and he grabs his cell phone and he's trying to call for help, but then he runs into another killer, which causes him to drop his phone and it shatters. So eventually Owen makes it into the Halloween party, and he sees that a bunch of people are dressed as the killer. So like him running into these people, it was nothing new. Like a bunch of people are dressed as the killer because of the email. But then he sees a couple of his friends. He sees Tom and Regina, and he tells them like, somebody attacked me. And I'm sorry, he doesn't see Tom and Regina. I think it's like Lewis and Regina, and he tells them somebody attacked me. And they're like, oh, dude, it was just Tom. Like, he was just trying to like scare you because you skipped the dance. And at this point, Owen realizes, he's like, oh, like they were actually trying to run me in the direction of the dance. Like, so that makes sense. That was Tom. And then they bring up how Randall's back because Tom's car is here. We haven't seen him, but he must be back because he borrowed Tom's car and Tom's car is now here. So Owen is like, that's great. So he goes out into the parking lot and he goes to Tom's car, and the keys are waiting on the tire. Like that's where Randall would have left them. So he gets in the car and he's planning to hide it to get back at Tom for like messing with him and trying to chase him and everything. But when he gets in the car, he touches the steering wheel and he looks at his hand and there's all blood on it. And sure enough, the killer rises from the back seat and attacks him. And the struggle ensues for a minute, but ultimately Owen is able to get out of the car and he starts running through the parking lot, and the killer starts chasing him. But in the distance is cops. Like there are cops on campus to like monitor this Halloween party. So Owen starts calling for help, and sure enough, the cop looks and sees this killer chasing after him with like a knife above their head, and he aims his gun at them and he tells Owen to get down, but then the killer stops running and is like, stop. And it's a girl's voice, and she bends the knife and she's like, it's not real. And she takes off her mask to reveal that it's fucking Mercedes. Like Mercedes just played a fucking prank on him and almost got shot in the process. So later that night, we see that groundskeeper that we had seen earlier. He's just like picking up the mess that everybody left at this fucking party. And we cut to the parking lot and we see eventually all the cars leave campus because, again, nobody stays on campus for the weekend. So everybody's gone and campus is now quiet and basically completely empty. But we do cut to Owen and Tom's room and we see Owen in there, and the RA comes in to get Owen to bring him to the headmaster. And as they're going to leave, Owen gets another IM from the wolf, and the wolf this time says, "When does a lie become the truth?" And Owen just ignores this one and he goes with the RA, and they pass Graham, who looks at him and is like, "Dead man walking." Like, fuck you, Graham. Where have you even been this whole time? Like, shut the fuck up. So Owen ends up getting called into the headmaster's office, which is actually like a mistress because it's a woman, but they call her a headmaster, which, like, fucking love that shit. Fuck yeah. Equality. But Mr. Walker is in there for some reason too. And the headmaster explains how she's keeping them all there this weekend because of the stunt that they pulled, like what he and Mercedes did, which, like, I hate that Owen is being blamed for this because Mercedes decided to be a dumb bitch and like chase him even when there were fucking cops there. And the headmaster is like, Mercedes already told us what we need to know about how a prank almost led to 2 of my students being shot. And like, given your history, you're in a lot more trouble than everybody else, which, again, like, that's so not fair. Like, Owen just was chased relentlessly while he was trying to work and then was chased in this car. Like, he's just getting the fucking shit end of the stick here. Like, everybody fucking is mad at Owen for some reason. And the headmaster tells Owen, like, "I'm actually inclined to send you home. However, Mr. Walker here has spoken up in your defense. So that's the only reason I'm not kicking you out of school." So eventually the headmaster has to leave because her like son comes in and startles Owen. He's like dressed in a Halloween mask. And that's what makes Owen realize, like, wait a second, last night was the Halloween dance, but it was not Halloween. Today is Halloween. And he tells that to Mr. Walker and he's like, "It's also a full moon tonight. And I think the email was read by the person that murdered that girl in the woods. And I think something is going to happen tonight because we said, like, in the email, we made up that it starts on Halloween night." And Mr. Walker just like thinks it's his friends. He's like, it's just your friends playing a prank. So Owen ends up going back to his dorm and he sends an IM to the whole friend group and he says, "Midnight, chapel, we finished the game." So we cut to that night and we see the group arrive, and the group just consists of Tom, Lewis, Regina, and Dodger because Mercedes doesn't want to come because she's all upset about like the whole thing that happened, Lewis says, and Graham's not there and Randall's not there either. So when Lewis says Mercedes isn't coming because she's upset, Tom is like, "Yeah, thank her for getting us all kept on campus." So apparently they weren't all in on that prank. Like, that was just a thing that Mercedes did on her own. And Lewis is like, the reason she did it was to prove that a woman could be the killer because earlier you guys were like, "Oh, only a man could be the killer." So she was trying to prove a point, but she did it in like the fucking stupidest way possible, if you ask me. So the group is obviously all pissed at her. Like, they know it's her fault, like that Owen had nothing to do with that. So they're like pissed at her because now they're stuck on campus for the weekend, which, like, it's the end of the fucking world. So they couldn't go to the lake house. Now they're stuck here. But it turns out Lewis also reveals, like, Randall never took Tom's car. Mercedes took it so that she could like pull a prank and do. So she's been planning this. So she ended up taking the car, and they say that she dropped Randall off at the bus station, and that's how we ended up getting there, so that Mercedes could keep your car around to do this prank. But then Owen chimes in and he's like, "No, Randall never made it to that school." Like, he explains how he talked to his girlfriend, Jenny. And he's like, "I think something happened to him. And like, I really don't think this is just a joke. Like, Mercedes played this stunt, but who was the one following me and Dodger in the library?" And Regina admits to that. So everybody's like, what the fuck? Okay, so that wasn't anybody real. And she's like, "I was just trying to scare Dodger. And I also took your backpack when I saw that you left it there. And I'm the one that gave it back to Tom." And it's at this point that Tom admits, "Yeah, and when I had your backpack, I'm the one that put the knife in it because I was trying to get back at you for trashing the room because at that point I thought that you did it." And Owen still denies that at this point. He's like, "I'm not the one that trashed the room." And at this point, Lewis speaks up and he's like, "Mercedes had an earring that looked like Randall's piercing and she thought it was a good setup for the car stunt because she had been planning that." And Lewis admits to being the one to trashing the room to make it look believable and like make the piercing, like make it all a setup. So Tom is obviously fucking pissed about that. And he's like, "Dude, like, I went after Owen in the dining hall to get back at him for trashing the room too. And I should have been getting back at you. Like, what the fuck?" So now we understand, like, every time they've seen a killer or something bad has happened, it's been each other. Like, they're all trying to fucking pull pranks on each other. So then Owen is like, "Okay, so we're determining who did everything. So then who sent the IMs from the wolf?" And nobody owns up to that. Nobody admits that. And he's like, "Okay, so nobody's admitting it here. It's got to be Randall." And Owen is like, but if it was Randall, wouldn't he have shown up by now, like to kind of gloat about how he got us? And he asks Lewis, like, did Mercedes actually see him get on the bus? And Lewis is like, I'm not sure. So he goes off to call Mercedes. And Regina is like, how do we know that Owen's not lying? Like that he even got these IMs and that any of this is even real? And Owen is like, I'm about to be expelled. Like, why would I do that? Like, why would I put myself in this situation? And Dodger is like, exactly. This is a new game because Owen knows that he's going to take the fall. So he brought us all here to confess. And she starts going to walk out like she's like upset by this. And like, she's all like high and mighty. She thinks she figured it out. And then Owen is like, is that what you're going to tell Mr. Walker? And she stops dead in her tracks. And he's like, I saw you two in his office. And she turns and she's like, so that's why you've been such a jerk. Yeah, bitch. Like you made it seem like you liked me and you're fucking our teacher, which is like a whole gross thing. And I'm not trying to blame her because obviously she's being manipulated by this older man, but like the whole situation is just fucking gross. I'm also throwing hate to Dodger because I know where this goes and what happens. So don't think I'm fucking victim blaming here. I hate Dodger for another reason, okay? We're gonna get there. So after she says, like, is that why you've been such a jerk? And he's like, you're the one that's screwing a teacher. And she admits it and she's like, I was, but it's over because after the library, like that moment that we had, I actually went over to go end it. And she's like, I saw you kiss him back. And she's like, what else could I have done? And he actually tried to do more before I pushed him off. And we get a flashback of her pushing him off in the office that night. And she's like, he told me that I was too mature for guys my own age. Bye, disgusting. And she looks at Owen and she's like, I guess he was right. And she walks out. So now like she's turning this on him, like she's pissed. So we cut to Lewis, who is on the phone with Mercedes, and she's in her dorm and she's saying how like she's been crying all night and she's just going to go take a shower. And she says the whole dorm is empty because everybody's off campus. And she goes to the bathroom, and as she's closing her dorm room door to go to the bathroom, we see a figure walk by and she doesn't see it. So she ends up going into the bathroom and she's on the phone with Lewis this whole time. And she's continuing to talk about how they think the wolf is Randall. And Mercedes says that she didn't see him get on the bus. She left him in town because it was like an hour until the next bus. So he was just going to like fuck around and wait for the next one. So she's like, it probably is him. Like, you're right. He probably walked back to campus. So Mercedes is in the bathroom. She starts to undress and like they kind of have like this sexy moment, her and her boyfriend, of like, oh, what are you wearing? And she's like, I'm wearing your favorite PJs. And he's like, oh, send me a picture. So she goes to take a selfie of herself with her phone. And it's not like iPhone selfie again, because it's an old phone. So it's where you have to like actually turn it around and fucking snap it. So you can't see what's behind you until you look at the picture. So she ends up taking this picture of herself and she sends it to Lewis. And as she's taking this picture, we saw a curtain like slowly open behind her, and Lewis looks at the picture and he sees a dark figure standing behind her, and he's like, Mercedes, there's someone there. And she looks in the mirror and she wipes the fog off the mirror, and sure enough, she sees the wolf standing behind her. And she doesn't panic immediately. She's like, oh, it's just Tom. Like, he just scared me. And she laughs about it. But then Tom walks into where Lewis is, and Lewis is like, Mercedes, Tom is here. So Mercedes looks at the wolf and she looks down and sees that he has a knife in his hand. And it's at this point she starts to panic. And we cut back to Lewis and we see him. He just hears her scream. Like, he's on the phone with her. He hears her scream and he looks at the others and he's like, Mercedes was attacked getting in the shower, like, call for help. And he runs out to go run for her. Now, again, this is following the whole setup. Like, this is following exactly what they set up, because they said that the first victim would be looking at themselves in the mirror and that's when they're attacked. And that's exactly what's happening to Mercedes. So Lewis makes a run for it. And Tom at this point thinks that it's a joke. But Owen comes in and he's like, no, remember the first murder happened in the bathroom. Like, we literally wrote it. It's the guy who killed the girl in the woods. And like, he saw the email and he's pissed. So he calls campus security to report it, but these motherfuckers think he's joking. And he's like, until you have like a faculty member call me, like, we're not going to believe this. And Owen's like, nobody's here. Everybody's gone for the weekend. What the fuck do you mean? But these people are useless. So he hangs up, and Tom is kind of pissed at this because, again, he thinks it's a joke. So he ends up leaving to go back to the dorm. And Regina suggests, like, if this is real and somebody is here doing this, like, why don't we just leave? We should just take off. And Owen agrees with her. And the three of them kind of start to argue back and forth. But Tom pauses when he looks at Regina and he's like, what's on your face? And she has blood on her forehead. And she had just picked up a sweatshirt from one of the pews because, again, this is a chapel. So she picked up a sweatshirt from one of the pews and she looks down at it and sees that it has blood all over it. And she looks down on the floor and sees a blood trail leading to one of the confessionals in the chapel. And when Tom goes to look in, he panics. And Regina looks in after him. And sure enough, they see Randall all dead and bloodied. And we get a flashback to the wolf killing him and dragging him into the confessional. So Regina starts crying. She's panicking. Tom's panicking. And she's like, we got to get out of here. And Owen is like, what about Dodger? And the two of them look at him and he's like, I'm going to get her. Like, wait for me. And Tom is like, you have 20 minutes. Like, we're going to be in the car. If you are not out here in exactly 20 minutes, we're leaving with or without you. So Owen makes a fucking sprint for it. He starts running across campus and he gets into this dorm building, like Dodger's dorm. And as he gets in there, he hears coughing coming from the stairwell. And it's one of those stairwells that like spirals all the fucking way up. Like it will take you forever to get to the fucking top. So it spirals all the way up. So he's the very bottom and he looks up and sure enough, he sees Lewis from the very top looking over the railing. His hands are all covered in blood and Owen starts to run up and Lewis tells him to stop. He's like, no, go get help. But then Owen watches as the wolf shows up behind him and grabs Lewis and he just listens to him scream. So Owen runs upstairs and he literally is running upstairs forever. Like there's so many stairs. So he's running up forever and he gets to where Lewis was just attacked and he finds a blood trail leading to a door and no body. And that door is locked so he can't even go in. But then Owen hears a scream from somewhere else, a girl scream. So he runs downstairs and he gets to the dorm hallway and he starts calling out for Dodger. And he slowly approaches her dorm room and it's like cracked open. So he pushes the door open and turns on the lights and there's nobody there. But then he looks outside and he hears a car and he sees it's like Tom and Regina in the car and he goes to run outside and he hears them driving away and he tries to chase after the car being like, wait, like there's no way that it was just 20 minutes, you fucking liars. Like, fuck you guys. So Owen looks in the parking lot and sees that Mr. Walker's car is still here. So he's like, Walker, like he's still here. So he ends up running into the faculty building to go find him and he has to like break in. Like he breaks a window and opens the door and he's calling out for Walker, but he's nowhere to be found. But he does end up going to his office and the phone starts ringing. And when he answers the phone, it's Dodger and she's crying. And she's like, I just found Mercedes dead. So like she knows that Mercedes is dead. And he tells her like Tom and Regina left with the car. Like we need to find a way off campus. Like we need to do something. And Dodger is like, if you're in Walker's office, he usually keeps his keys in his desk. Like get his keys, we'll take his car. And she also tells him like, I'm on my way over to meet you and I can see you in the window. So he turns around and he sees her walking through the quad on campus and he's like, oh, like he's like relieved to see her. But then he sees the killer come out behind her and start approaching her and he yells at her. He's like, Dodger, run. So she turns and sees the killer and she starts running and the killer chases her. This chase ensues and Dodger gets to the faculty building, but the door she gets to is locked. So she like punches the killer in the face and he starts to stab her. And we don't actually see the knife go in because we're seeing the killer from the back and he's he's covering it, but she ends up falling and Owen is like screaming. He runs downstairs and is trying to save her, but he can't open the door because now her body is against it. So Owen runs back upstairs and he looks out the window and sure enough, he can see Dodger's dead body, like the bottom half. He sees her laying down and like her legs just like sprawled out. So he knows that she was just killed by the wolf. So Owen goes back to Walker's office and he's like looking through the desk because he's trying to find keys at this point for the car, like Dodger told him. But when he opens the desk, he finds a gun. And he's like, what the fuck? So he grabs this gun and then he hears a noise from behind him. So he ends up going out into the hallway with the gun and he hears Mr. Walker. And Mr. Walker is like, Owen, like, is that you? Like, he seems confused. And he sees Owen with the gun and he's like, Owen, I'm coming in. So he comes in his own office with his hands up and Owen has the gun pointed at him and asks it. And Mr. Walker asks him where he got it. And Owen is like, your desk. And Mr. Walker is confused. He's like, what? Like, what do you mean? But they move on. And Walker tries to like talk Owen down because he literally has a loaded gun pointed at him. And he has this camo jacket and an orange ski mask in his hands. And Owen is like, where did you get that? And he says that he found it in the stairwell. So Owen then accuses him of doing all this. He's like, you're the one that's been doing all this. Like, you killed all my friends. And Mr. Walker denies it. And he's like, no, Dodger called me and told me to come here. And And Owen is like, that's why you stood up for me with the headmaster, because you wanted me here for all this. You wanted me to know that you killed them. You wanted me involved. You killed all of them. And Mr. Walker is adamant. He's like, I don't know what's going on. Like, they're probably all just messing with you. And he looks at the gun and he's like, is this the gun? Owen says this. He's like, is this the gun that you killed that girl with in the woods? And Mr. Walker says, Becky. Like, he obviously knows this girl. And Owen is like, were you screwing her too? And Mr. Walker is like, did Dodger tell you that? And Owen says she didn't have to. And suddenly Mr. Walker lunges at him and he attacks Owen, and like a struggle ensues over the gun. He's trying to get the gun from him, and suddenly we hear a gunshot go off. And you know one of them was shot, but we don't know which one yet. But we do get a flashback of when they were making up this whole thing, and it was like, oh, the good boy who fell for the bad girl, and like he died from a broken heart and he was shot in the heart. So we're like, oh fuck, did Owen just get shot? But no, we see Mr. Walker standing with the gun in his hand, and we flash to him and we see that he has been shot in the chest, and he keels over and he dies. So Owen looks down at Mr. Walker's body, like seemingly kind of relieved that this whole thing is over, but then suddenly the door opens and it's Dodger. And she's standing there perfectly fine. She's wearing a white shirt. There's no blood all over and on her at all. She is not dead or close to dead whatsoever. And she looks at the body and she's shocked. And then suddenly Tom and Regina come in behind her as well. And Regina starts screaming. And now we cut to outside. We see Mr. Walker's body being zipped up in a body bag. The cops are all there. And Graham and Randall, perfectly fine, by the way, Randall is, talking to the cops, being interviewed, saying it was all just for fun. These motherfuckers, this was all a fucking prank. All a prank. Everybody fucking dying, all a fucking prank. And we find out right now how it all went down. So Randall and Graham are explaining to the police, like, this was all just for fun. Like, we were just playing a game and we decided to work together tonight to scare Owen and Mercedes because they got everybody in trouble. So that was the whole point of this, because they're the ones that got everybody kept on campus, which again, it was really just Mercedes. Like, Owen had nothing to fucking do with that. And we get a flashback to Randall's body in the confessional in the chapel. And after everybody walked away, we see him like come to and smile. So he was just fine. He had fake blood all over him. And Randall says, like, we didn't think anything was going to happen. So we cut to Mercedes and she's saying to Lewis, like, how could you let Graham do that to me? And we get a flash to her in the bathroom, and she was never actually attacked because she unmasked the killer, and it was Graham who started laughing. Like, she never got hurt. He never attacked her. And Lewis says, like, I didn't know what was happening until I left the chapel. Like, I thought you were actually being hurt. And we get a flashback to him as well when he's on the stairs, like up on that staircase, and he runs into Graham, and Graham puts like fake blood all over his hands and like fake kills him and makes that blood trail. It was all a fucking joke. So then we see Tom and Regina, and everybody's distraught because of what just happened. And Tom says, like, Dodger wasn't supposed to hit me that hard, because it turns out he's the one that attacked Dodger, and she actually punched him in the face. So we see them, like, we see what actually happened. Like, she falls to the ground, he's above her, and the two of them like start laughing quietly because they know that this is working. And Regina is kind of pissed, and she's like, why did you hide when Mr. Walker showed up? Like, why didn't you say something? And Tom can't answer that because it seems like he doesn't know why he hid, because all of that could have been avoided had he just been like, Mr. Walker, like, I'm sorry, like, we're fucking with everybody. So we see Dodger outside looking completely distraught as well, and suddenly that groundskeeper comes up to her with the jacket, and she says, no thanks, Dad. So that's why we keep seeing this guy. This is her father. So we then see Owen being taken out of this building in handcuffs and put into a fucking cop car. Like, this poor kid literally just got his whole life destroyed and killed somebody because of your stupid ass fucking prank. So he ends up getting put into the cop car, and Dodger just watches and cries. And eventually we see some cops in Mr. Walker's office, and they start to search his things. And in his things, they find pictures of himself with that girl, Becky. And they also find pictures of just Becky, like in lingerie, like in bed, and pictures of the two of them. So he was indeed fucking this girl. So, like, am I upset that Mr. Walker died because he's very clearly a fucking predator? Like, you're fucking your high school students, you weird bitch. Like, how many others? How many others, Mr. Walker? Now there can't be any more because you're dead. You're dead. Goodbye. Nobody feels bad. So Owen ends up getting brought into the police station, and his dad is there. Like, finally his dad is there to fucking support him or do something. And his dad gets up and like kind of awkwardly hugs him, but he ends up sitting down, and he tells Owen, like, my attorney says that they're actually going to drop all the charges in self-defense. So you're fine. Like, nothing's going to happen here. And Owen's kind of shocked. He's like, how is that possible? And his father tells him the weapon, the gun that you used, it turns out it was the gun that the police have been looking for because it's the gun that was used in the shooting of that local girl. And it turns out you shot a wanted murderer. So like nobody's mad about that. Like you actually did everybody a fucking favor. And Owen asks how they knew that. And his father explains that he was involved with the victim and they found pictures, and they also found that he purchased 2 plane tickets, one for him and one for the girl, like one under her name. And Owen asks, like, why would he kill her then? And his father says they're calling it a crime of passion, but nobody ever really knows the truth behind these things. But I mean, right now it seems like everybody won. Like Mr. Walker got shot and killed, but he was like a predator, B, a murderer. So like nobody's really upset about that. But eventually a cop comes in and interrupts them and tells Owen, one of your friends is here to see you. And his dad tells him that everything's going to be okay. He's like, we're going to work this out. Everything's going to be okay. So Owen goes out to see this friend, and it turns out it's Dodger. And she hugs him and she says sorry. She's crying. She's like, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. And Owen tells her it's okay. And then Dodger says, if I knew he was involved with that girl, I wouldn't have played this joke. And Owen pauses and he looks at her and he's like, what did you say? And she repeats what she said. And he's like, you're right. You wouldn't play the game if you knew that if he was cheating on you, if Mr. Walker was cheating on you, you would get back at him. And he like looks suspicious at this point. And Dodger plays dumb, this fucking dumb bitch. And he starts to say, he puts it all together at this point. And Owen is like, you wanted me to believe you were off campus when the first IM went out. And in the chapel, you had said that you ended it with him. But I don't think that's what happened. I think that you were still in love with him. And you knew that girl. And you knew that she was sleeping with him. And we get a flashback to Dodger saying like, oh, some townie was screwing the wrong guy. Which like, how would she have known that? So like red flag immediately. So Owen says to Dodger, he's like, you murdered her and you planted the gun and you told me where to find it. And we get a flashback of her saying like, Mr. Walker keeps his keys in his top desk. So that's where he found the gun. And Owen is like, I was your guy from the moment we met, you planned it. And we get all these flashbacks of things that Dodger said, like, oh, you're playing checkers, I'm playing chess and all that stuff. And Owen is like, you knew that I would shoot him. You knew that I would get rid of him for you. And Dodger just cries and she's like, that's crazy. Like she's still denying it. And Owen is like, I thought it was the object of the game. And we get a flashback of her saying what the object of the lying game is: avoid suspicion, manipulate your friends, and eliminate your enemies. And Dodger is still crying. We cut to her and she just says, even if that were true, and she's crying and she's all upset. And then suddenly her face relaxes like she doesn't give a fuck. She goes, who would believe you? This fucking trifling hoe. This is the definition of a fucking trifling hoe. Fuck you, Dodger. And she fucking walks away and leaves Owen alone in the police station. And we get a flashback to that girl Becky being shot, and this time we see the killer's face, and sure enough, it was fucking Dodger. Dodger's the one that killed Becky in the woods, and she planned this whole thing and fucking framed her cheating boyfriend, who happened to also be her teacher and a disgusting fuck, and she's the reason for fucking all of this. And we cut back and we just see Owen watching her leave, and we fade to black and the movie ends. Now, I'm not saying that Mr. Walker didn't deserve it, because like he was absolutely still a fucking predator and like gross. Like if it's not the consequences of your own actions, sir, like I don't know, maybe stop fucking your fucking high school students, you weirdo, especially one that just happens to be psychotic and also like really smart, the way that she was able to plan this whole thing so in advance and completely get away with it. But that's why I hate Dodger. Like that's why I've been shit talking Dodger this whole time, because again, like obviously she's a fucking teenager at this point and she was manipulated by this teacher, but I just hate her because of what she did to poor Owen. Like Owen did not deserve this, and now he has to live with this for the rest of his life, that he shot this man that, like, I don't want to say an innocent man, but he wasn't a murderer. And like this girl was literally just manipulating him the whole time. Like she never liked you. She never gave a fuck about you. She just knew that you liked her and she could use that to her advantage. She is a fucking trifling hoe bitch, and I hate her. God damn it, Dodger. Had to ruin such a cool name, because that is such a cool name, but it's just such an awful person. But at the same time, I have to give her props because she's fucking brilliant. The fact that she was able to put this all together. Also, though, this is the worst friend group known to man. Like, I would never be able to trust any of these people, because you are all just like pranking each other and fucking with me the whole time. This is the worst fucking friend group ever. And like, it's not even just little pranks. Like, these are serious pranks to make somebody think that they're being chased by a fucking killer and like almost getting shot by the police because of it. And to make somebody think that everybody's being murdered. Like, you sick bitch. Like, what is wrong wrong with these people? So yeah, moral of the story, get better friends. Like, have good friends that don't pull this shit on you. And yeah, that's the point. That's Cry Wolf. This movie was actually originally supposed to be rated R. This is a PG-13 movie because like you don't really see a lot of the violence, because honestly there really is no violence. Like, only 2 people get killed in this movie, and it's Becky in the beginning. You don't even see her get shot, and it's Mr. Walker at the end. And like, you hear the gunshot and you see him have a gunshot wound, and that's really it. Everything else is just like fake blood and carnage. So nothing violent otherwise than those 2 at the very beginning and very end. Nothing really happens. Nobody actually gets hurt. Even though this is technically a slasher movie, nobody actually gets slashed. Not one person gets stabbed. Like, the 2 people who die are gunshot wounds. It was originally supposed to be rated R, so there was a whole bunch cut out of it that would have made it more gory. I would love to see that version. But at the same time, I also think this is more realistic not having that much gore, especially at the end, knowing that it's all fake. Like, none of it was actually fucking real. So that's Cry Wolf. Is this really a Halloween movie? Kind of. I mean, the foliage is there. Like, I think this was filmed in like Virginia or some shit, so it's like really pretty looking, like all like the fall leaves and stuff, and it takes place around Halloween, and there's a Halloween party, and the killer strikes for the first time on Halloween. So like, yeah, it's a fucking Halloween movie. Why not? On Wednesday, we are going to be talking about a movie that absolutely is a Halloween movie. In fact, it has Halloween in the title. It's called Tales of Halloween, and that one is an anthology. And I love a Halloween anthology. Trick or Treat is probably my favorite movie to watch during this time of year. So we are going to be talking about Tales of Halloween on Wednesday, and then next Friday's video episode is May, which definitely is not a Halloween movie. Like, this one, Cry Wolf is like, okay, yeah, it could be a Halloween movie. May definitely is not. There is a scene that takes place on Halloween night, and I also just love the movie, so that's why I want to talk about it. Another 2000s core movie. So that is the lineup for next week. If you guys haven't yet given me a 5-star rating on Apple, Spotify, wherever you're listening to me, it would be super helpful. Helps push me out into the algorithm and find other people to join our lovely little growing community we have here. So until next episode, you guys know where to find me. It's horror_chronicles on TikTok and Instagram. I post every day, so you can go keep up with me there. And until next time, watch more horror movies and stay spooky, my friends.